Hey loves, you are listening to the Chakras, Sex, and Relationships podcast. I'm your host, Eliza Boquin. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a sex therapist, and a certified energy healing practitioner. This podcast is all about helping you to have healthier, mutually satisfying, pleasure-filled relationships while staying in command of your energy. Although the information in this podcast may be beneficial, it is never a substitute for a relationship with a licensed physician or a mental health professional. All right, are you ready? Let's get into it. Hey there, and welcome back to the Chakras, Sex, and Relationships podcast. I am your host, Eliza Boquin, and I am back. I promise you, when I started this podcast, I had every intention of showing up regularly, of getting these shows out, having guests on here. And you know what? Life sometimes has other plans for you. And as much as I tried to do it every week, I just kept getting slammed with other things, but I miss this. And so many of you have reached out to me and said, when are you coming back? Are you coming back? Well, I'm back. Here I am. And I'll be honest with you. I think one of the things that has really held me back is my perfectionism. I am a recovering perfectionist, and what I know about perfectionism is that it is the distant cousin to avoidance, and that perfectionism really is rooted in avoidance. And so let's just get into it. Let's dive in. One of the things that I often hear people struggling with as a relationship therapist, as a sex therapist, I will often have people questioning why somebody might seem like a really good fit on paper. They seem to be somebody who meets all the qualities that they said they wanted in a partner, but they just don't feel attracted to them. They don't feel physically attracted to them. That's one thing. Or I will also hear how the physical attraction isn't as strong as it's been with other partners, or it's begun to fade. And this really starts to trip people up. It really makes them second guess the relationship. It really makes them second guess themselves, second guess their partners. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that today, because I think the problem is we often confuse physical attraction, that which we feel in our bodies, right? Like we feel it up, whether that's I get the butterflies, or my heart starts to beat fast, or I start getting warm, in different places of my body. And it feels good. I feel lit up. But where I think we get into trouble is that we equate that with somebody being the right fit for us, or we equate that with love at first sight or love or what have you. I think a lot of us may even equate it to love, because I will often hear people who have been together for a really long time and that sort of intensity has faded, which it does, which it will. And they start to question, well, I don't know if I'm in love with this person anymore. And so let's kind of break that down. Why I think this happens is because of what we see in movies, to be honest with you. What we see in movies, what we read about in stories, and that is, you meet that person and you are throwing them on the kitchen table, or you're being thrown on the kitchen table, and there's so much passion and there's so much intensity, and that's how you know it's the one. Well, a lot of what I tell the people that I work with is that when we feel that type of connection with somebody, a lot of the times it is because they are sparking old relationship patterns in our mind. Okay. What do I mean by that? This feels familiar. And a lot of times that familiarity about that person is because of some sort of relationship dynamics, interpersonal situations where this is very familiar to what I experienced growing up. Now, I'm not talking about the arousal piece, okay? Let me just make that. I'm not talking about the arousal piece. I'm talking about the familiarity. That's a tough word. The familiarity will show up and it excites us. Now, let me preface all of this by saying our brains don't necessarily know what's good for us. Our brains don't necessarily work in what's right, what's wrong. Our brains work with what feels familiar to me, what does not feel familiar to me. And you're probably guessing where I'm going with this, and that is our brains will always instinctually kind of gravitate towards that which is familiar to us. So when you combine that with somebody who maybe you find physically attractive, boom, there's an explosion. That in it of itself is not necessarily a bad thing, right? However, a lot of the times when I hear people talking about this, it's that the people that are lighting them up are the partners who are sort of causing them the most stress. The ones that they're having relationships with that are the most chaotic. And so they want to break this pattern. And so that's wherein the problem lies. And what they also may experience is that they meet somebody who is a really, they'll describe them like they're a really nice person. They're a really great person. But I'm just not attracted to them. I just don't feel that spark. I just don't feel that excitement. Now, if you are used to chaotic relationships, if you are used to chaos in your life, and chaos in our lives can look many different ways, right? If you grew up in an environment when you were a kid and there was a lot of chaos, and so that may have been, maybe you moved a lot. Maybe you moved, from apartment to apartment each year. Or maybe one of your parents had a job that you were having to, be at new schools every couple of years. Or maybe you had you grew up in a family where your parents were regularly arguing, or there was a lot of noise, or there was a lot of people coming in and out of the home, whether that's people staying with you or visitors. Maybe you had like really, really busy lives. Maybe the environment in which you grew up, if you had parents who maybe one of them had hoarding tendencies or the home wasn't the tidiest. If you grew up in some sort of chaos, if you were used to there always being a lot going on, when you meet someone who is more grounded, who maybe offers more stability, then that can really come across as this person or this relationship is really boring. Okay? Because even though you may have longed for, and even though you may have craved stability, predictability, organization, your brain doesn't know what to do with it. Right? Like it's different, and anything that is different to us feels like a threat. And so it might feel really boring, and boring may feel like a threat. It's like, am I going to feel like this forever? And so a lot of what is happening is the value that we're placing on these different experiences or how we experience another person. Now, what often happens is we want that stability. We want the security with the person that we're drawn to, and that person, let's say that person is chaotic, and we want to get that person to be more secure, more stable, more predictable. And therein again lies the problem, because we are gravitating towards partners who cannot offer us what it is that we long for, but we work really, really hard to try to change them. Or we might experience little pockets of it in the relationship, and we hold on to those little glimpses of what could be and hold on for a really long time. But that glimpse of what the partner could be like, it's just a glimpse, right? It's not how they consistently show up. So what I would say is that it requires a lot of unlearning about what relationships can offer us. Okay. I've said this before. I think we underestimate that relationships can really offer us an opportunity for growth. Okay. Relationships are there to offer us an opportunity for growth. Safe relationships in particular. And what I mean by safe is not just physically safe, but emotionally safe, mentally safe, spiritually safe. Meaning I can be who I am without the facades, without the masks, without me trying to be somebody else. I can be myself and I can fumble along the way and I feel safe to do it. Okay. So those relationships really offer us an opportunity to be more self-reflective. And the reason that I say they offer us an opportunity to grow is because I can begin to experience how other people experience me. Right? If I want my relationship to work, if I want my relationship to grow and to thrive, then I have to look outside of myself, right? I have to look outside of myself and consider my partner's experience. And it's important for me to see what my partner is reflecting back to me in terms of how I show up in the world, how I show up in relationships. And therein lies the opportunity for growth. So I don't think we place enough value on that aspect of relationships, where we place our value. And I think that's in part because of the culture, of the society in which we live, where we just celebrate the highs, the intensities, the feel good stuff, right? That's just the culture that we live in, where anything that causes us discomfort, we label it as bad. And, we want to get away from that, take a pill for it, drink something for it, smoke something away, avoid it. But we place heavy emphasis on only that which feels good. And we really don't value that which challenges us. Now, I'm not saying something that challenges us in a way that is harmful, right? Because harm is different than discomfort. But I don't think we value enough the opportunities that we are presented with of discomfort. And discomfort is where our growth resides. Okay? Discomfort is where our growth resides. That's what's waiting for us. So what happens when I am with somebody, I'm not necessarily getting lit up by them, this feels kind of boring? What I would say is take some time to really think about what are your expectations of a relationship and where did this expectations come from? Because there's a part of you that expects boom, fireworks or intensity or what have you. There's a certain value that you've placed on that. So where does that come from? Is it because of what you've seen in movies, what other people have told you? Maybe it's what you've experienced before. Okay. And if you've experienced it before, okay, well then let's look at that relationship. Why did that relationship end? Right? Why did that relationship end? The other thing that I would say is important is for you to recognize what are some of the patterns, right, that you might begin to notice that you are repeating in relationships. As you look back at the partners that you've had before, what are some of the common traits that those partners have? And what are some of the common traits that those partners have that maybe your caretakers had? Okay, that's really where the connection and the insight comes from. So we have to recognize that because it's what's familiar to us, we're going to gravitate towards it. But does it serve our highest good? Just because it's familiar to me does not mean that it serves my highest good. Okay. And then maybe you're saying, well, Eliza, I don't really know what serves my highest good, right? I don't really know what it is that would serve my highest good. And that's fair. Then maybe what I have to do is I need to do a little research, I need to find out what exactly are the qualities, are the characteristics of a relationship where people can thrive. What do those relationships, what common traits do they have? If you want to go down that route, I highly recommend the work of Dr. John Gottman, who has done years and years of research on relationships. And so his work is one that is, I'll often refer people to. The way that I think of relationships that serve our highest good are equitable relationships, our relationships where there is balance, where there is reciprocity. That does not mean that everything is the same, because I do believe that depending on your culture, depending on your beliefs, depending on your values, what roles you and your partner play may differ. And as long as it works for each of you, then great. But what I mean by that is that you are getting as much out of the relationship as you put into it. And the reason that that's kind of my default to it is because I very much look at wellness, whatever area of my life. I look at it from the indigenous perspective of balance, that anything can be medicine, anything can be poison, right? It's neither good nor bad. It's about balance. So I think relationships that are equitable, that also challenge us, right? Like that also offer us an opportunity for us to continue to evolve, for us to continue to grow. Again, anything in nature that is thriving is constantly changing, right? It's constantly changing. Where I'm at right now, it's supposedly winter, but it's like 80 degrees outside today. But the seasons are different. And so I look at the trees, right? Like they look different. They're constantly changing depending on the season. And we are part of nature. So I would hope that I am constantly evolving, growing, changing, learning. And I think the relationships where we thrive are the ones that offer us the opportunity to do that, and to do it in a way where, again, it feels safe. We don't feel stifled. We don't feel like we have to hold ourselves back. And that's hard. I'm not saying that's easy. It might be a simple concept, but it's a scary concept also, because when the people we love begin to change, especially when it's our partner, again, that's something different than what we're used to. The brain is going to read that as a threat. Anything that is different, anything that is unknown, automatically my brain is going to read that as a threat, and it's going to prepare me for that, right? So this is why we have to be so aware, so conscious, so awake, because so often our brains are just the ones that are kind of leading the show, and we don't ever take the time to question them. Right? And I always remind people, like, your mind produces thoughts. It produces thousands and thousands and thousands of thoughts a day. And a thought is just a thought. It's not necessarily a fact. But how often do we sit with those thoughts and we contemplate those thoughts, and those thoughts grow and they cause us distress, and then we act on that distress, and we don't always challenge our beliefs. We don't always challenge our thoughts. Okay. And our brain is just trying to keep us safe, right? It's just trying to keep us safe because our brain is wired to keep us safe for survival. So this is why we have to slow down. And this is why self-awareness is important. And this is why it's important for us to really understand our relationship history, especially the history of the home in which we grew up, the caretakers that raised us. Not because we want to get stuck in the past, no, but it's to help inform us of what are the thoughts, what are the beliefs that I have today, and are these my beliefs? Do they align with who I am today? Or were these beliefs and values that I was given by somebody else that I never even took the time to research or to study or to confirm or deny, right? So that's what I have to offer you today. Maybe you're one of those people that maybe you just met somebody and you're like, they sound really good on paper. Do I think that love can grow? I do. I actually do think that love can grow. But I don't think it's the type of love that you see in the movies. Okay. Love is an action. Love is showing up. Love is consistently. Love is steady. Love is steady. But do I think that interest and attraction can grow? I do. And why I believe that is because so much of what turns us on and when we're aroused has to do with our brain. Okay. Is it true for every situation? Of course not. Nothing is a one size fits all. But do I think that as we heal and as we grow and as we tend to the parts of us that maybe are still, wounded, I actually think that our attraction can change. And what I mean by that is like the type of guy that, well, I'm saying guy for me because I'm a heterosexual woman, like the type of guy that I may be attracted to as a 46-year-old woman wouldn't be the type of guy that I was attracted to maybe as an 18-year-old girl, right? And so why is that? Because I changed, because what I know changed, because I have new information about myself. I have new information about the world, right? So I do think it can change as we start to change our beliefs, to change our thoughts, to challenge our limiting beliefs and thoughts. And so that's why I believe attraction can grow. And I also recognize that the butterflies and the passion, all of that is really, really, really fun. I recognize that it's really, really, really fun. And the reality is that fades too. Even when you have that at the beginning, maybe you have that at the beginning and the person that you met is the right fit. Eventually it does start to taper down. Doesn't mean that it's gone forever. You never experience it, but you won't experience it the way you experienced it at the beginning, because part of what feeds it is novelty. It's the newness. It's the unknown. But when you've been with somebody long enough and you walk past them in the bathroom, like the mystery is gone. So expectations and our beliefs about what we think should happen in a relationship and how it should happen, I think that's what messes up the most. So there you have it. There you have it. There you have it. I am back. I hope that, some of this resonates with you. I hope it helps. Please make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you are leaving me a review. Leave me those 5 stars. Stay in touch with me. Stay in touch with me. I am on social media. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Facebook at Eliza G. Boquin. Of course, if you live in Texas and you want to work with me, maybe you're ready to start therapy or you're looking for a new therapist, go to flowandeasehealing.com and let's see if working together is the right fit. I have also expanded my services to where I now offer coaching, relationship coaching. I offer coaching around chakras and energy healing, around sexuality. So if you live outside of Texas, we can't do therapy, but we can do some coaching. So you can reach out to me also, and you can also go to my website to get more information about that. All right, loves. Well, thank you again for joining me. I will be back. And until then, make sure you are flowing with ease.